Hey friends, Amanda and Beck back with more no bullshit business tips for you today. Today we're talking about onboarding a new staff member and what we should actually be doing when that new team member starts with us.
Amanda, I don't know how many times you've heard this, but it's just so common, and I used to do it. So, I always put my hand up and say I used to do this, but you just interview a teacher, maybe not even interview them. Sometimes you just go, oh, yep, we definitely want you to come in and teach. And then in they go, and that's it. That's your onboarding. It's like so crazy because no other business on earth would ever do that.
Absolutely not. And so it's really important to have a really great first impression and start off on the right foot with a new team member. Whether they're a teacher, an admin person, whatever that is, it's so important. So what are some things you do to get started onboarding a new team member?
Right. I think the most important thing is to talk to them about your values, what your school's about, how you expect them to be acting towards the kids in every class. Like we want inclusivity, for example. We want every child to feel special. We want every child to grow in confidence.
Absolutely.
Maybe you've got a really elite training thing and you want to see improvement in every child in every class. Like put those expectations out to start with.
Absolutely. And that's a great way just to start it. Like, just a meeting, and it needs to be a decent sized meeting because there's a lot to cover, right?
So much, yeah.
So, I really like to have, a good sit down after I've decided to employ them, before they've started, 2 hours sometimes a bit longer. We go out for a coffee and we chat about the why we do what we do, what I feel is important in the studio. So we do that, and then I do a separate one that's more like the tech side of it or the system side of it, I guess. But my first one is definitely about the why.
Yeah, and I think then setting the expectations from the get-go. If you want them to come 15 minutes before their class and chat to parents or be in the waiting area, tell them that.
Absolutely.
If you want them to wear the uniform, tell them that. If you want them to, whatever your expectations are, make sure that they know them. And oh gosh, this is a pet hate of mine, Amanda, another unpopular opinion. People who have staff handbooks and just hand them the handbook.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I'm someone who never reads any of the things. I'm terrible with that stuff. And it's just such a it's a way to avoid the confrontation.
Absolutely. And I think having one, if you have one, great.
Yeah,
Give
great.
it to them as a follow-up.
Sure.
But having the conversation first is super important. And, having a chance to have a discussion about it, not just oh, you should have read that in the handbook. But hey, this is what we want, or going through it together. It's such a better way to build a relationship with that team member.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I talk a lot about self-reflection as a leader, but when you complain about a teacher doing something, for example, a teacher sitting down in class or a teacher being on their phone, and you're just like, how could they do that? Did you actually ever tell them that wasn't something that you appreciated in your studio? Because maybe they're working for other studios who could sit down and don't care about it. So have you actually done that? Have you spoken to them about it? That's what I think you've got to keep self-reflecting as leader. And even if you did speak about it, are you continuing to remind them?
Absolutely.
It's just so important, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I think, that first initial, this is what we do, these are our expectations, are super important. I then sit down and have a systems kind of talk with them.
Yep.
This is the Slack, which is we use for communication. This is how you mark your role. This is if you're sick, how to do it. This is how to put your timesheet in on Xero. Going through all of those things and showing them those before they even walk into their first class is super important. Giving them a really good tour around the studio, doing all those things. But then what about after their first week? What do you do next after that? Because I don't think it's just hey, that's the meeting, go, done. What do you do next?
Well, definitely talk to them.
Yeah.
Follow up with how they went. Ask them if they had any concerns, any problems. And that has to be a week by week thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really think those first couple of weeks are absolute key.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important to make sure you're setting aside time to perhaps go into their class and watch for sure. In those first, 3-4 weeks. But also, if you can manage just doing even just a 15-minute catch-up, every week for 4 weeks, just going, hey, and how did that go with that? And how are you coping with this? And do you have any questions on that? And by the way, I noticed you did this. I would have liked to have seen it this way instead. It doesn't have to be you did it wrong. It's just a conversation, right?
Yep, absolutely. And also what a great time to set your non-negotiables like staff training.
Absolutely.
Here's the days you have to come to staff training.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's the days you come to concert training. Concert day. You know what else I was going to say? Also just making sure that you let them know that for this event, you're not going to get your necessarily hourly rate because you're at staff training, but we do a day rate for that. putting that stuff forward to them so they know those things up front. You
Absolutely.
don't get to it and then they are expecting one thing because you haven't told them the other thing.
Absolutely. I'm really big fan of that as well. And I always make sure when I employ all my staff, I'm very clear with this is how much you're getting paid for teaching. We would have a teaching and an admin rate.
Yep.
And this is how much you're getting paid as an admin rate for additional things that you do, such as concert days, comps, training days, and then we also sometimes gave them additional admin time. So really upfront with that so there's no questions. I think that's the biggest key.
Absolutely. If you're unsure where to start with this, just start walking around your studio, having a look. You know, if there's something that a staff member does that annoys you, write it down, and then you can set your expectations through that. And I think that's the best way to get started.
Absolutely. You know, just thinking about it, even if you don't have a new staff member starting right now,
Yeah.
just starting like a bit of a list of things that you do want to go through with the next time you have a new team member is absolute key. So we want you to take action on this. Don't forget, if there has been a staff member that has started in the last any time really, it's not too late.
No.
Jump in and have a conversation with them. It's not too late because don't feel that like once they've started, that's it. Like, it, you know, obviously it would have been great to do it at the start, but if you haven't, take time and do it today.
Absolutely. Let's do this shit, guys.